You've found me again, did you? That was my impression of Wesley Jones, who has his own amazing YouTube channel about making maps. His has to do with drawing fantasy maps, and it's fantastic. Okay, let's dig back into this scale of miles. In our first video, part 1, we built this structure based on our reference Scalebar from a cool old map of Philadelphia. You know, printed on yellowed paper with slightly imprecise, probably copper plate printing technology, and then hand tinted with, I think, a human being's hand and a little paintbrush and a little bit of tint ink, just smudged in some red for that line. Let's see if we can replicate something like this for our own map. Here's the original map. What I want to do is just quickly steal the texture of the background, just because as we're making our scale, I want to have a background that looks like this, just so we have the right sort of context. And I'm in the Library of Congress. They have a great map viewer, and there's a little scissors here. I'm going to grab this and just, you know, nice and easy. Clip the image. I'll save it here, and I'll just call it paper. This part isn't important. This is just me being overly fastidious. Okay, back in Pro. Now we need to add a background layer. This is just context. This is our map, by the way. And I'm going to activate this so that I can add content to it, add data. There's a great handy layer in the Living Atlas called Global Background. And I'll add this. It's just a big rectangle that covers the whole world. Isn't that funny? That's all it is. Drag it underneath my land. Okay. And then for this fill, instead of a solid fill, I'm going to do picture fill. Set its quality to picture. And then navigate to that image I just saved. Here it is. I called it paper. And let's make it reasonably big. 512 or so. I don't know. And we'll see how this looks. Too big. 256. I mean, you can see the mismatch in the edges, but you know what? It just looks like this map was folded in the past. Good enough for now. Good enough for who it's for, who is me. Okay, so there is my background. I've got my scale bar structure. Let's dig into this. I'll pop out of my map view. Now I'm looking at my scale bar. I look at the properties. For this, I can get rid of that. And we've done the work of getting the right fonts in place, but the fonts just look too crisp and perfect. If you look at the reference, see how it's kind of blurry and irregular because of the ink, you know, variable amounts of ink getting picked up by the plate and getting printed onto the paper. Let's dig into the appearance of that text, and look at this, text fill symbol. If I expand this, if I click more polygon symbols, it'll just open up my styles gallery. Now Pro comes prepackaged with 2D styles, basic things, and then a favorites thing. You can see I've been populating things into my favorites style. Style just means if you make a symbol that you like, you can save it and just reuse it later instead of having to rebuild it in the symbology panel later. But what we're gonna do is actually just format this. This helps us dig into the symbol used to render these shapes. Now, in ArcGIS Pro, really, text is just another polygon, and you can dig into that polygon and style it however you like. You know, we map makers like to style polygons, and we can keep doing that right down to the text. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Okay. Now I'll go to the structure I'm going to add an effect called wave. And you can see what's going on here. It added like squiggly edges to our text. If I just hit apply right now, you can see what happened, right? A little bit crazy. Let's go. Oops, I went out too far. Format this polygon. Okay, so I added it here, added the wave effect in my structure. And then back in my layers, let's tweak this wave, make it a little bit better. I'm gonna choose random instead of a sine wave because that's the effect I'm looking for. And I'll just make these quite small. I'll do 0.5 and 0.5 just to see how we're looking. Okay, it looks like the frequency is way too high and it's buzzing. I don't want that. So I'll increase that with this period value. So 1, that looks okay. To 2.5. 2 even. Yeah, I like it. So I'm just, you can see what I'm doing. I'm goofing around. Instead of a half, let's do a quarter of a point just to make it more subtle. Okay. And then for the color, nothing is ever fully true black. If I were to eyedrop this reference thing, you would see that it would just be a kind of a dark version of the paper, not full black. In graphic design, you tend to shy away from going full black with things. Yeah, it's just how it is. So let's dig into the color properties here. And I like to set this to hue saturation value. And let's boost this value so I can actually see what I'm looking at. And I'll come to the yellow orange area that the paper looks like. And I'll just make it nearly black. Almost black. There. You get dark gold. The trick is I'm going to make this a little bit more than half transparent. Transparency is 60%. Hit OK. So we've got this kind of thing. Now if I hit apply, check it out. Cool, right? Well, it could be better because we're only half done. I'm going to dig back into this symbol. So back into the format polygon symbol. And over here in my structure, I'm just going to copy this and duplicate my layer. So now I have two versions of that wavy semi-transparent gold polygon. And I'm just going to tweak these a little bit. And I'll make this 0.35. And then this I'll make 1.5 or so. What this does, if I zoom in, it just gives me two versions of this. And this guy I'll make it a little bit more opaque. I don't know, let's say 80%. No, other way. I was thinking transparency or opacity. This is transparency. Let's say 20% transparent. Hit OK. Now when I hit apply, see how it adds a little bit of irregularity like we printed it? If we zoom out a little bit, you can see it. Pretty cool, right? I like that. Now, I just did all that work for the title. Do I have to do all that over again for these units? No. So what I'm going to do is go back into that format polygon symbol just this last time where I made my two wavy things. Okay, so instead of the symbol, saving the symbol, I'm going to save this embedded symbol because we've dug in a level. And I tell you, the fact that I can save embedded symbols and reuse them is a huge time saver. So I'll save this embedded symbol as a style. Now I can call it wavy text fill. They're loading my favorites. Okay, now when I back out and I go to my units text symbol, I can dig in here. And now when I look at my text fill symbol options and I choose more polygon symbols, here in this gallery, there it is. An embedded symbol, wavy text fill. Now click this, hit OK, and hit apply. There. It just applied it to all my units. I didn't have to redo all that work. styles are so handy. It's almost like a CSS for your map. A CSS file is to a website. A style file is to your map. It's looking pretty good. Okay, let's hit these this bar now. Okay, so for the bar, what's the bar? Let me just play with this. Okay. I did that so I could actually see what happened on the map, so I knew which one the bar was. The bar is this guy. And we've got the hollow left-hand symbol and the filled right-hand symbol. We'll start with this one. And we'll do a similar sort of trick. It's wavy. So I'll look at my layers and see what's going on here. I've got a solid stroke here. What I want to do is give that solid stroke some waviness. So I'll add that waviness and I'll come back to my layers. You can see it's perfectly wavy, like waves, you know, on a cartoon ocean. Too perfect. We don't want that. We want random. So in the wave effect, we'll go random and we'll really push that. That can be kind of long. The amplitude's a little high. That's the pokiness. So I'll make this like 1.2 and see what happens. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Now we're doing a thickness of 1, which looks pretty good compared to our reference. We zoom in, maybe a little too rough. Let's see. Again, I'm going to do that trick where I make this semi-transparent. And then in the structure, I'll just duplicate that line again. And make it slightly random in a different way. So let me get a 1-point amplitude and then a there. Okay, that helps. And if you look at the reference material, it's almost like the line breaks occasionally and you get like almost not a dashed effect, but somewhat. There's little gaps almost in this. We can replicate that sort of thing, and we'll just use the dash effect. This is something a lot of folks use as a hack to make things look kind of pencil drawn. So this dash effect is in there by default, but it's just a line by default. So let's pick one of these options, and then this dash template is like how many pixels on and how many pixels off, separated by a space. And you don't just need 2 numbers. So for example, you can have a pretty complex one, you know, on, off, and it looks like a irregular dash. So what we want to do is have a lot of it on. So let's do like, I don't know, 24 on, and then just 1 or 2 off, 1 off. I'll say 33 on, and then 1 off, or 2 off. And you can see that just invited a few little breaks in our line. You might think I'm crazy and overly detailed, but hey, I am. I am crazy and overly detailed. Okay. I like it. Let's hit apply. Oh man, it's too much. It's too much. There's too much amplitude in our random waviness. So I'm going to make this 1.5. I'll cut it right in half. When in doubt, cut in half. And I'll make this 1. See how that looks. A little better. It's still too strong though, and it's too semi-transparent. So I'll come up here and I'll make my fill less transparent. So I'm going to give it 20% transparent, which is 80% opaque. See how this looks? I like that. Looks good. Okay. So that is how we can scale the bar. Did I say scale the bar? I meant style the bar. Okay, now let's do the other one. This will be kind of fun. This will be even more fun. Let me dig into this symbol as we did before. Look at the structure. Okay, we've got our outline and we've got a solid fill. Just for starters, we're going to give this a dumb red. And then Here in the structure, we're going to add that wave option for our outline and duplicate it. So we've got 2 of them. Then back in our layers, I can make this guy 20%. This one 60% transparent. Okay, and then the waveform, instead of a sine wave, can be random. Make it 1. And I think it was 2 or so. And then this guy can be 1.2 by, I don't know, 4. And then this one is going to have that slight dash that we introduced to give a little bit of a break, like the printing process was vintage. And we did something like, I don't know, 24 with a gap of 1, and then 33 on with a gap of 2. That's too much. I'm gonna make this 0.5. I think I did that for the other one too. Not funny. Okay, yes, that looks good. Okay. Now the red fill is just too perfect, you know? First of all, it's rendering underneath my black outline, whereas in our reference, somebody has gone in and manually hand tinted this on top of the ink print. So I'll come into the structure, and I'm gonna drag this right up to the top. You aren't stuck with outlines rendering under or on top of your fill. You can make the fill render on top. See what I mean? Now the fill is rendering on top of my outline stroke. That's cool, huh? Okay. Again, a lot of this comes down to that trusty old randomized wave. So with my solid red fill selected, I'll choose random. And this time I've learned my lesson. It's going to be 0.5. Let's just keep it at 3. See what that does for us. Cool, right? We're getting there. This is not fully opaque in our map, so we need to come into the color properties. I'm going to give this a deeper red that more suitably matches the red that we're copying. And I'm going to make this, I don't know, 40% transparent. Okay, apply. Pretty close, actually. I'm going to boost it a little bit, not a whole lot. Okay. Now, in our reference material, the ink is spilling outside of the outlines. Right now, we're coloring in almost perfectly, which belies artificiality, because the person brushing this had a fine-tipped brush, but not fine enough. So what we want to do here is give this an offset so that this fill polygon grows outside of its bounds. And believe it or not, there's an option for that. So in the structure, I can add an effect. I'll call it offset. There's all kinds of, explore these. Move, offset, rotate. They're so cool. So I'll choose offset. I'll come back here. And the offset effect is 1 point. I'm going to make it accurate. Zoom in, you can see 1, 2, 3, right? You get a sense for what we're dealing with. Let's do 2 points and see what happens. 2. That's close. It's too much. So I'm going to do, 1.5 point. Hit apply. And I like it. Now, if I look at the randomness, it's too perfect here. And in the reference material, the spillage outside is way broader. That's okay. We can tweak that in our wave effect. So the period just has to be much lengthier. So 12 point period, hit apply. And this can be a little bit bigger, like 3/4 of a point. Okay, very cool. The offset's a little strong. I'm going to snug it back in a little bit, 1.25. Apply. See where we're going with this? We're just tweaking things and playing with it and seeing how it looks. Now I'm going to do what I did with the outlines and make two versions of this semi-transparent thing. So I'm going to make this more semi-transparent. And then I'm going to come here and duplicate it. You'll learn that making things look artificially real requires a lot of symbol layers. So I've duplicated my wobbly red semi-transparent fill, and I'm going to just tweak its waveform now. So this one will be more like the little local squigglies. Local squigglies. And I'm going to make it just 1 point offset to pull it in a little bit. And hit OK. If you zoom in, you can kind of see we're making it look a little bit inky. Let's make this bigger. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm liking this a whole lot. And we haven't imported any, I mean, besides this background image, which is just here for context for us, for color and texture, we haven't imported any image textures in our Scalebar so far. And it looks pretty good. We're doing really well. All we have left to do now is just grab these tick marks and, you know, give it the same sort of effect. If we look at what we're working with here, it's just a solid stroke. Easy. We'll come here, add an effect, our friendly old wave. Come here, and we'll make this kind of like a half a pixel or a half a point, whatever the difference is. And we hit OK, and apply. You know, we're getting somewhere. And then this can be semi-transparent, 60% transparent. And then we go back into the structure, duplicate it, make it less semi-transparent, and then change its randomness so it's not perfectly overlapping. Okay. Now we've done it. This is how you make a plausibly retro vintage old print hand tinted map element. Now if I wanted to save this and reuse it later, you saw me use the fill, saving the fill as an embedded symbol to a style. Like I said, styles are super handy if you want to reuse all the work that you've done. So what I'm going to do is just right click this, and there's a save to style option. So in my favorites, I can just call this like wonky old Scalebar. Arr. There we go. Now, in any other map I make in the future, I can just plop in a Scalebar that looks just like this. In fact, let's do that. So I'm in my layout. I'm going to insert a Scalebar, and we'll see what's available to me. Well, look at that, my wonky old Scalebar. And I click this, and maybe I want a little one. Cute little Scalebar that's only this big. See? Looks good, doesn't it? And I don't have to redo a ton of work. Making this big, whatever. Okay, have fun. Really, it's just a handful of tricks. You've seen me do it. Wave, semi-transparent, lots of symbol layers, and make styles your friend.